Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm really excited for today's video. It is going to be my first update in my Pan in Every palette series. I was doing pan those eyeshadows for the majority of 2021, but I recently switched over to doing Pan in Every palette because it just felt like it was going to make more sense for my collection this year, the way that I've been bringing eyeshadow into my makeup collection, etc. And I am really excited to share I have 5 new eyeshadow pans to share with you. One of them coming from the palettes that I was working on. So I'm really excited to share my new pans with you. We will be rolling in a couple of new palettes to work on. So if you're excited about this update, stay tuned. First, if you have yet to subscribe to my channel and you like project panning content, palette themed content, or just chit chatting about makeup, we do a lot of that over here and I would love if you'd consider subscribing before moving on. But other than that, let's jump into the video. Okay, you guys, I'm gonna start with my bonus pans. So the pans in separate eyeshadow palettes that I hit that I was not actively working on in this project. I also have a palette playlist that I'll leave linked down below if you can. I also have a palette playlist. I'll also have my palette playlist linked down below in case you're interested in checking out any more palette themed content for me. We just did an eyeshadow palette week, so we posted videos every single day for a full week, and there's tons of palette content out there on my channel in case you're interested in checking that out. And I did just recently post my eyeshadow palette collection and declutter, so I'll also have that video linked down below in case you're interested in seeing my entire eyeshadow palette collection. But let's start with my bonus pans. Up first, the first bonus pan that I hit since I last updated you guys on was from my Urban Decay Born to Run palette. I already had these 2 pans in this palette, and I hit pan on the shade Blaze right here, which is a really beautiful inner corner highlight. This palette takes dedication to hit pan on, so the fact that I have 3 eyeshadow pans in this palette is super exciting to me. Obviously this wasn't a palette that didn't have any pans on it, so it's not a new palette with pan, but it is really exciting to add another eyeshadow pan to my collection. I'll also have some like data and statistics down below about how many eyeshadow pans I have in my collection, how many pans I've hit this year, which I think we're at 24 after I include these 5, and then also my percentage of palettes in my collection that have pan on them. So check that down below. I'll also try and post it at the end of this video. But next up, I have a new eyeshadow pan in a new palette, a new pan in a palette. So my first pan in this eyeshadow palette, this is the Canyon palette from Alter Ego. It's supposed to be the dupe for the Natasha Denona bronze palette, and I hit pan in the shade, I hope you'll be able to see, Expanse right here, which I had been using in my brows quite a bit. So I hit pan on this one pretty easily, and I'm really excited that this was a palette that did not have any eyeshadow pans on it, and now we have a new pan in here, so that's super exciting. Also a new palette that I haven't really included in my palette inventory number. I don't know why I've never included this, but this is a really old palette. This is the Kat Von D Alchemist Holographic Palette for face and eyes, and I always use this as an inner corner highlighting palette when I'm doing colorful looks. And I hit pan on the shade Blue Sapphire right here, which I'm not even sure you'll be able to see just because of the nature of the shade, but there is a pan there, and I have some really good dips going on all of the shades in this palette, but I'm also really excited to have hit pan on that. And then the last bonus pan that I have before we get into the pan that I hit on a palette I was working on in this project comes from my Nabla Dreamy 2. I was working on this palette in my palette roulette series. In case you guys are interested in checking that out, I'll leave that playlist link down below. But I already had a couple of pans in this palette as well. I had these 2 pans right here, and now I have a new pan on the shade Pantheon right here, which was obviously just a lid setting shade. I hope it's catching that. There we go. Obviously just a lid setting shade. I've kind of been cycling my palettes this year and trying to hit pan on as many lid setting shades as possible. I don't know if you guys consider that cheating, but a pan is a pan in my opinion, and I'm very excited to add a 3rd pan to this palette. I love the Nabla formula and I love the Dreamy 2 palette, so was very excited to add a pan in that palette. So now let's get into the 4 eyeshadow palettes that I've been working on in this project, and we can start with the one that I do have a pan on. So up first we have my Colored Rain Queen of Hearts palette. I did end up reaching for this palette a total of 11 times in this project. This is what this palette looks like. I will also have pictures of what the palette looked like when we rolled it in and what the palette looks like now, because I'm not necessarily choosing a focus shade. I'm just kind of using the palette. Obviously in my head, I'll probably choose a focus shade, but my goal is just to hit pan on any shade in the palette and add a pan to my palette, to a palette that doesn't already have a pan on it. So I don't even think you'll be able to see, because I only can see if I look at a very specific angle, just because the pan actually looks like the shadow. But I did hit pan on the shade Crown right here, which I've been using as a inner corner highlight. I already had a pretty big dip going on that shade, so I was pretty confident that was going to be the shade that I did end up hitting pan on. And alas, it is. I hadn't used this palette at all really this year, so I was really excited to reach into this again, and I think this is something I'll continue to reach for the fall time, but I'm very excited to add a pan to this eyeshadow palette. I don't have any other pans to share with the other 3 palettes I was working on. We will be rolling the Colored Rain Queen of Hearts palette out, obviously, since we did hit pan on that. And I'm also going to roll out this Charlotte Tilbury Palette of Pops quad, because I have decided to declutter this palette. I reached for this 3 times and I'm honestly just not excited about this. I don't love the quality. It's good quality, but it's not like outstanding, and I just don't see myself really using this that much because I just am not excited for it. I think that these shadows are good for the most part for one and done looks, or just like a really quick simple look, but it's just not something I get excited to reach for. So I am decluttering this palette, meaning we'll roll in a new palette to replace that one. My Pat McGrath Divine Rose palette. This is what she is looking like. I only reached for her 4 times, and I mostly reached into this shade right here kind of as a lid topper shade, but I also did reach into some of the mattes, and then I used this shade as a inner corner highlight. I did try and reach into each shade at least 1 time so I could kind of get a feel for maybe a shade I would be interested in working on. However, I have tried to pan a Pat McGrath pan before, and it didn't go well. The pans are very, very deep. So I think I might work on this for a couple more months, kind of add some disruption to a few more of the shades, and then possibly just veto this and roll this out. I haven't quite decided yet, but no really significant progress at all. It's actually this shade that looks like it has the most significant dip, which I don't even think you can really consider that a dip. But yeah, I don't know about this palette. I don't really know which shade I want to focus on, and I'm really not confident we could have a pan anytime in the near future. And then the last palette that I've been working on is the Odenzine Norns palette, which I reached for 6 times. I actually have one of these shades on my lid today. I used the shade Hallucination, which is this really beautiful teal shade, and I've actually reached into this shade a couple of times. I think if I were to hit pan on a shade, it will probably be Pink Chameleon, which is this really beautiful kind of pink duochrome shade that I really like to use on the inner corner. I could also see myself hitting pan on Amber Place right here, and I reached into Realism a couple of times. This is a really beautiful palette. I was really happy to just roll this in and get some use on the shades in this palette. This is a newer palette to my collection. Obviously this released this year. I think it's beautiful. I love the quality, and I'm really excited to continue to work on this. Maybe we'll have a pan in Pink Chameleon next update. I do have a good dip going on that shade. I'm not sure how deep the pans are on this, but I would be excited and happy if we could potentially roll this palette out next update. But those are all of my pans, bonus pans, progress, and now it's time to roll in 2 new palettes to replace the Charlotte Tilbury palette as well as the Queen of Hearts palette. So I'm going to go into my Pretty Random app, and I have all of my palettes that currently don't have pan on them listed in a spreadsheet. We're going to randomly generate 2 numbers between 1 and 125, and we get number 15 as well as number 78. So I'm kind of nervous. Let's see what these are. Number 15 comes from the ColourPop Sorbet, which is a quad, and I believe, no, that's not my favorite. I think the creamsicle one is my favorite, but Sorbet, I believe, is the like mauve toned one, which is going to be super beautiful for this time of year. So I'm actually really excited about that one. And then number 78 is the NARS Climax palette, which is a very new palette to my collection. Lucky me. Okay, I'm gonna go grab those 2 palettes and we will take a quick peek at them. All right guys, I have the 2 palettes. First up, we have the ColourPop Sorbet Quad, and this actually came to me with a shadowed shade, which I did repress, which is this one right here. But I do believe if I'm to hit pan on any pan in this eyeshadow palette, so many just P words, I do believe it would be this shade. This is the one that I feel like I get the most use out of. It's a really beautiful metallic shimmer shade. I want to be careful swatching it. But I also feel like this could be a really like dangerous shade to hit pan on, just because it already is like so crumbly. Look how beautiful that is. That just looks like such a beautiful, like just wet lid topper shade, and I feel like I can get a ton of use out of this. These are also like the tones that I love to reach for this time of year, so maybe I could hit pan on this one. Next update, we will see. And then I also rolled in my NARS Climax palette, which is really new to my collection. I haven't even reviewed this on my channel yet. This is what this looks like. I believe I have used every single shade in this palette. I'm not a huge fan of the mattes in this palette, and this shade right here isn't even like a lid setting shade. It's more of like just like a transition blending shade, and I do feel like the mattes are a little bit more firmly pressed, so I feel like my best bet would maybe be to use the brown as a liner or even like a brow shade, just because I don't feel like I'm gonna have really quick significant progress with any of these shimmer or metallic shades either. So this one will be really interesting to see how quickly this one goes. But that is gonna wrap it up for today's update. Again, I will post for sure down in my description box all of my data, and if I can get my butt into gear and get stuff ready and posted right now on the screen, I will also post that. I don't want to speak prematurely in case I'm wrong, but I believe I do now have 24 eyeshadow pans that I've hit in 2021. I think I have 25 of 146 palettes currently in my collection with pan on them, which would equal about 17% of my eyeshadow palette collection currently with pan. I'm just not 100% on those numbers because I just decluttered, so I want to make sure I have that all correct. But again, I'll post that down below, and hopefully I just posted it on the screen. Other than that, that is going to wrap it up for today's update. I hope that you guys enjoyed. Thank you so much for sticking around to watch today's video, for supporting my channel as you guys always do. I love you guys so much, and I will catch you in my next video. Bye.